Hey, and welcome back to Without a Doubt, the podcast. I'm your host. My name is Madison. I go by Mad. I'm a cycle breaker, entrepreneur, and a sprinkle of reality. This podcast is a place where we celebrate living life authentically and organically as ourselves. We're the ones breaking cycles, making waves, and living out our truest versions of ourselves. Growing up, I always wanted to be a daddy's girl, but I had an absent dad. Long story short, I'm a mommy's girl. I'm a mama's girl. I'm a mom's girl. But it's basically because my mom was a single parent. She was a single mom, and she was basically a single parent my entire life. And when she did end up getting divorced, my dad would sprinkle in his visits between prison or whenever he was actually capable. I say this because there were three of us, three kids, trying to keep himself straight, working a shitty waiting job, and trying to be a good dad was really hard. He did what he could, and when he could, that was sparingly. I think because I knew my dad struggled to be a good dad, even at 8 years old, I always went with him and he would take us for the night or dinner or whatever he had to offer. But then as I started getting older, I realized that going out with my dad and doing the weekend thing with his kids, it was really hard on him. It wasn't just financially it was hard, but he wasn't really ever super straight. He was always on drugs. He also made some bad choices, like taking me to a crack house to pick up for himself. I think at 13, I learned the hard stop on people pleasing, and I laid down my laws with my dad. I said what I had to say. I learned at an early age, it's okay to keep people at arm's length, even if it's your family. I learned early on that people pleasing and doing things for others, like going to see my dad on his terms, it just wasn't for me. My dad, the boundaries that I learned to create, the ties I had to break, showed me that I could be myself in order to live out the authentic life. I can't tell you that it was easy, but I can tell you that it feels so much better to always follow what feels best in your heart, to lead with good intention. And I think this is a great episode to talk about people pleasing. It's something that probably happens to every single one of us. We all seem to seek validation, but I think it's important to be able to draw the line on total people pleasing or just doing things because genuinely you're a good person and you want to. It's completely normal to want to do things right or make people proud. We want to avoid conflict, but ultimately that's inevitable. Sometimes we tend to let people walk all over us, aka you start people pleasing. This episode is just the tip of the iceberg on the topic, but I feel it's important to bring this to light as living an authentic life means you're going to disappoint a fuck ton of people. I constantly rearrange my own plans in order to fit things into my life and schedule. And honestly, I know that's a me thing. I know I'm not complaining. But this is just a part of me that I find is people pleasing. I'll talk more about this stupid shit I do to myself in a bit. But let's talk about what is people pleasing. People pleasing is a term that describes someone who's consistently trying to please others. Sometimes it's at the expense of their own needs. People pleasers may seem helpful and kind, but constantly making themselves available will take a toll on their emotions. A couple of signs of people pleasing include avoiding disagreements with people or even voicing your honest opinion. Like you just don't advocate for yourself and you don't speak up. Or having trouble saying no, setting healthy boundaries. Setting boundaries for yourself is hard. Or seeking approval. You're constantly seeking approval or trying to please other people. You're probably a people pleaser. And last but not least, worrying too much about other people's needs. Now, this is a little tricky because I think worrying about other people's needs, there are people that you're going to have to worry about. If you have kids, there are little loopholes to that. But people pleasing is the tendency to place an inordinate value on relationships over personal independence. This is what sometimes can become harmful to oneself. Sometimes we do this so that we don't let other people down or we don't get rejected. And a lot of times in turn, this only leads us down a false road of self. People pleasing can also sometimes come with manipulative behaviors because we have a specific outcome in mind. If you are a people pleaser, you want to please people. Our goal with these behaviors is to make sure we're seen as good by others or a kind person. For certain, you want to be helpful, but the being helpful part of people pleasing is not as important as the perception that we're helpful. That means even doing things you may not want to do and sacrificing your own time or work. Or better yet, this will actually lead to resentment when you're not able to be firm in advocating for something that you're going to need first. You might be saying, Madison, no, I am a badass cycle breaker who does shit on my own terms, but don't be fooled. We can all become people pleasers even without realizing it. I myself have fallen victim, and often, even weekly to be honest, I find myself taking my free days and using them to help others when I know I'm designating that time for myself. But then again, I start placing my relationships over my own personal needs. I know it's not good, but I'm human and I'm acknowledging that. I tend to people please. I tend to place other things before myself because I want to make sure that, my family knows that I am there for them. I am not selfish. I am not these things. But a lot of times when you are going out of your way to do that stuff, you actually are selfish and you are manipulative. It's not for a genuine cause. It's for other reasons. Family, in my opinion, is one of the hardest places where people pleasing falls into place. And why? Because growing up, your parents, your aunts, your grandparents, those are the people who usually will give you validation. And we're all seeking validation. We want to make our family proud. We want to do what makes them happy. You want to keep peace. You want to keep balance, and you want to keep happiness. A lot of the time, this is where people pleasing starts taking a toll on your mental health. When you're not respecting your time, your boundaries, or your space, you're not actually providing yourself with the tools that you need to continue filling up your own cup. If you've listened for a bit, I talk all the time about filling up your cup. Your cup needs to be full. I don't believe in that half cup, half empty shit. You need a full cup. It's got to be overflowing to feel happy. You've got to know you've got to feel grateful. Sure, if your cup is half full right now, grateful for that. But I definitely think that an overflowing cup is more likely to give. Here's a great example on a couple of things that I talk about people pleasing. Now, let's not get this example twisted. Weekly, I go to see my grandma. I get to see my grandma. We go to lunch. We go get groceries, whatever she wants to do. TJ Maxx, whatever store. I love this day. I have been doing this for the last 15 years. It's one day a week that I essentially put aside. On the weeks that I don't get there or I can't go, I tend to feel guilty because I'm either out of town or working an odd job, or I just don't have the mental capacity / time to go. Like I said, I've had this date plan with my grandma for over 15 years. I feel obligated, but I also love her and I love to go see her and I love to talk about nothing. I love to just be in her presence. Like I said, I sometimes put my own personal shit aside so that I get to be with my grandma. And I know it's a day she enjoys and she looks forward to, and it's a day she gets out. So it's one of those things. It's like I'm putting my relationship before my own personal needs a lot of times, and that's putting my foot into my business. Sometimes I'm putting my business aside because my grandma needs help, or my mom needs help, or someone needs help. And I think I do also fall into these people-pleasing tendencies. So much so I am starting to seek therapy. I usually do have an openness schedule. I cannot complain. I do freelance. And so most people, which I think most people think I sit on my ass and do nothing all day. I feel busier and I feel like I do a lot more than the average 9-to-5er. And I have family members who will call me the day before because they needed a favor or their baby to be watched. And as much as work as I had to do, I would go. People pleasing at its finest. Putting the relationships and what other people need before my own. Truthfully, I am a person who likes to help. That is in my nature. I love helping, and I think I enjoy feeling like I'm needed. I think a lot of people like that. However, I don't like to feel like I'm being taken advantage of. Who does? I think there's a point in everyone's life where you're like, fuck that. I have my own life to live, and I want to do things my own way. Ultimately, you're going to be happier doing things you decide on your own terms. Independent thinking leads to higher self-esteem. Higher self-esteem leads to more confidence. Let's say that again. Independent thinking leads to higher self-esteem, and higher self-esteem leads to confidence. Maybe that's my new mantra. If you're a people pleaser, maybe you're like, damn, I've been feeling like I've been doing so much for other people and others and not enough for me because I always say yes. Excessive people pleasing has the potential for numerous negative consequences. You may start to experience fear of rejection, of just even disappointing others. It'll lead you to having low self-esteem because you're going to start having difficulties making independent decisions. Remember, Independent decisions lead to higher self-esteem. Higher self-esteem leads to confidence. We talked about that, right? And then you're also going to have a hard time setting healthy boundaries. Boundaries are so important. I have an episode on this. It keeps you in balance with what you need for yourself. We all have different boundaries, but you have to honor them in order for the boundaries to be bounding. Here are 8 tips that can help you learn how to stop people pleasing, start finding value in yourself, and start leaving behind the tendencies for good. Number 1, we really need to recognize our choices, taking accountability. I really feel like I'm starting to feel like a broken record here. Like everything is just one big spider web. Accountability, boundaries, confidence, like all of these things are within self-help, self-worth, self-love. What you know you're actually capable of and what you use to help guide you to those choices, those are the things that are going to feel the most genuine to you. If you know you can do it, you're going to feel good doing it, period. You're going to have the confidence to do it and the genuine ability to want to help. Recognize your choices, take accountability, and be useful on this planet. Number 2, we really need to start setting goals for our lives. Set them for your own life. And I want to just start by saying, I think the journey is a whole lot better than the actual goal. But the end goal is just like having your eye on the prize. You need something sparkly dangling in front of you, reminding you of your journey. What is the purpose that we are working so fucking hard for? It's so easy to fall off track. And I definitely think we need to follow that little sparkly thing, follow the goal, and enjoy the journey. Number 3, let's really establish those boundaries, hold on to them at work and life all around, and make sure you just adhere to them. Make sure your boundaries are bounding. You made them for a reason. We're also going to start small. Sometimes people jump and don't realize you just can't do it all at once. Madison, we're talking to you. It's okay to start slow and steady. Those are actually the ones that win the race. You will burn out if you shoot off like a SpaceX rocket launch, I promise. Small steps, just like saying no instead of yes one time, might actually give you that little kick in the butt to say like, okay, I could do that again, even if that was difficult. And that leads into giving yourself some time. Remember, we're going to start slow and steady, the tortoise, not the hare. These changes are going to be hard. If you are a people pleaser, this is not going to happen overnight. Remember, Rome was not built in one day. You know? Number 6, for some reason, these changes never feel good. They never feel good. When you start doing them, it's because it feels different. And when you start doing them, it will feel different. It's not going to be your norm. And that's okay. The more you do it, the more confident you're going to feel. The more you do something, the more you're going to know you can. You're going to do it, find the capabilities, and keep it moving. Number 7, stop apologizing and start advocating for yourself. If there's one person you're going to advocate for, it's got to be you. No one is going to be able to voice your feelings better than you. You know what's going on in your mind. No one is a fucking mind reader. And I think people pleasers usually feel run over because you can feel like you're being pulled in a million directions. Because when you cannot say no, everyone has a pull. Everyone has a tug. They'll be like, oh yeah, Madison's available. Madison will help. Madison will do it. Why don't you ask me before you assume? It's okay. It is okay. You have to advocate for yourself. You can say, I'm not available. How about this day? I would love to help you, but not now. On my time is fine. FYI, people pleasing sometimes is because you're being manipulated, you're being gaslit, you're feeling like they're going to be upset with you. All those little things within that are so important. You need to advocate for you. I can't talk about that more. Maybe I need an episode on advocating for you. And number 8, maybe right into encouraging yourself. You can do it. If not, let me tell you again, if you cannot encourage yourself, you got to listen to some motivational things, get into self-development. I don't know what it is, but for some reason, building confidence is really hard, especially as an adult, especially if you're dealing through trauma, especially if you're dealing with family, especially if you're outgrowing your surroundings. The encouragement is probably what you need. And I'm going to encourage you that you can do it. You can take a step out of the people pleasing and into finding the most authentic life that you want to live so that it feels great to be here. I want to share this, by the way. This story just came to mind, but recently I was leaving the gym and my friend was heading into the gym and we bumped into each other and she was like, we should go work out sometime together. And immediately I was like, no. Like, I don't even think she finished saying we should work out. I was just like, no. I do not think she took it any kind of way. Actually, I know she didn't, but I was just like, girl, I'm just all over in my workout times. This is something that I like to do for me. And the people pleaser me, because I was a fitness coach for so long and I do enjoy working out. And I actually do like sometimes working out with others, but I just know I am so inconsistent with my time and I don't want to commit that I said no. That was me holding true to my boundaries on what I like to do in my fitness world. I actually thought about this conversation for the whole rest of the day, by the way. So it was so much so I feel like I needed to bring it up here. But it was one of those moments where I could have people pleased and said, yeah, let's do it. But for me and my boundaries and my gym flow, I said no. And I think that's totally fine. I don't think she took it any type. I know she didn't take it any type of way. Reminders to be you. There's no need to people please. Authentic living is not going to be easy. No one said it was, by the way. It's essentially you chopping your way through the Amazon with a machete, finding the most beautiful waterfall for you. It's you weaving and carving and creating that path, the authentic life path. Sometimes it will take longer to figure out whether or what or who or when. Sometimes we don't even realize that we're evolving and blooming in the moment. At the end of the day, you've got to please you, and you got to do the things that light you up so that radiance can shine through. People Pleasing 101 has come to an end. Thank you for being here, but don't let me forget you. Don't let me forget you. Don't let me remind you. Don't let me forget. Don't let me forget to remind you. Sheesh. Don't let me forget to remind you that you're without a doubt a badass. Next week, I will talk about how I lost 75 pounds in 1 year, how I went from mindless eating to mindful eating, and I'm going to get real personal on this episode. I'll see you then. XOXO, your girl Mad.